Hello, welcome to the Manasplained podcast. I'm Connor. Today I'll be talking about the deck I built for Nicol Bolas. So Nicol Bolas is like all the other Elder Dragons from Legends, where they cost 8, and then you have to pay 3 during their upkeep or they're sacrificed. But Nicol Bolas is probably the strongest of all 5 original Elder Dragons, and that's because if Nicol Bolas deals damage to an opponent, they discard their hand. Now, that's not combat damage, that's any and all damage. So if you can, say, turn Bolas into a pinger and tap it to deal 1 damage to an opponent, they would have to discard their hand. And that's how I kind of designed the deck and what I built it around. Because getting Nicol Bolas in through combat damage is not too bad because he's a 7/7 flyer, but he's missing trample or something like that, so any flying blockers could just chump it. So why not just avoid the combat step altogether? This commander is really mean, this effect is broken, and I really hope you like the deck. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps the channel grow, and I love talking with you guys down in the comments after these videos go up. So for the deck breakdown, we have 13 theme cards, 8 sub-theme, 5 synergy, and 3 protection, as well as 10 draw, 19 ramp, 10 removal, 1 board wipe, and 40 lands. So the ramp and land count is very high here, because instead of running a ton of protection to maybe stop your commander from dying, I'd rather have a ton of lands and a ton of ramp so that if your commander dies, you have more consistent ways to get it back out. And there is some protection here because I ran a bunch of really good protection spells, but I would have rather have protection in the sense of the inevitability of having a ton of ramp and a ton of lands versus just having all those protection pieces, and then if your commander dies, you can't really get it back out because the reactionary kind of protection versus the proactive protection is okay in this instance. Because your commander already costs 8, you're going to need a lot of ramp and lands to begin with, so to get there, having all that extra is great. And then the 10 draw to help you, keep consistent on that. And then the 10 removal, because you're making people discard their hands. What little resources they'll have left, they're going to target you with it. So you need to be able to deal with that. So like I said before, the theme of the deck is being able to use Nicol Bolas' ability outside of combat, using pinger effects and stuff like that. Here are a bunch of auras that'll let your commander now tap to make someone discard their hand. This is ridiculous. Some of them do say any target, most of them say creature or player, and the important part here is being able to hit a player. The best one here is probably Quicksilver Dagger, because in addition to making someone discard their hand, you get to draw a card, which is absolutely phenomenal. Another really good one here is Burning Anger, because it deals damage equal to its power. So instead of hitting for 1 with Quicksilver Dagger, you would hit for 7, which is a lot of damage. And after people's hands are discarded, you could use something like Burning Anger on your commander to kill their creatures if there's any left out. All of these effects just attached to Nicol Bolas make it so broken. But what's better than making one of your opponents discard their hand is making all of your opponents discard their hand. So Chandra's Ignition, for 5 mana, Nicol Bolas will deal 7 damage to each other creature and each opponent. All of your opponents will probably lose all of their creatures and then lose all of their hands. Chandra's Ignition with Nicol Bolas is probably the strongest combo in the deck. It is insane. Kedis, whenever your commander deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. So you only need one of your 3 opponents to not have any flying blockers. And then all of a sudden, all of them are discarding their hands, which is probably quite likely. And then Arc Bond, in response to Nicol Bolas like getting blocked or something, or dealing, or you blocking with him, you could just cast Arc Bond, and then it deals that much whenever it takes damage. This turn it deals that much damage to each other creature and each player. So it's like a weaker version of Chandra's Ignition because you need something else to damage it. So if you cast Arc Bond and then say Nicol Bolas has like a pinger on him, you can target itself with one of the pinging effects and then shoot that damage to everybody. It's so good. So like I said before, people will be removing Nicol Bolas, and the way you deal with that is have some effects that don't care if he gets removed. So Dragon's Tempest is whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to our creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. So if you have this out, when Nicol Bolas enters, you get to hit someone in the face for 1. You don't have to worry about tapping it or attacking or anything, just when it enters the battlefield. So that will make such a world of difference. And if people remove Nicol Bolas, you can just recast it and get this effect again. It's so powerful. And then Viridian Longbow being an equipment, even if Nicol Bolas dies, you can just re-equip. And to round off the theme, we have Gravitic Punch and Soulsfire. They're like one-off sorcery and instant effects that can do the damage to any target or player. Gravitic Punch is really interesting because it has Jumpstart, so you get one more use out of it before it gets exiled, and these cards are great just to be able to ping in someone. And Soulfire is also great because it's an instant, so if someone goes to remove Nicol Bolas, in response, Nicol Bolas might still be removed, but you can make them discard their hand. So for the sub-theme, because we're tapping Nicol Bolas to deal damage to people, I thought we'd run a bunch of untap effects. That way we can hit multiple people in one turn, or maybe everybody if we have the right untapper out. And the right untappers being Free from the Real and Penman's Aura. Both of these just have the ability, you pay a blue, you untap the enchanted creature, which means as long as you have 2 blue mana, and you have one of the ping effects on Nicol Bolas, you can make everybody discard their hand, which is insane. That's so strong. And an additional thing here, I didn't add it to the protection category, but Penman's Aura does have the ability to pay a blue, and then the enchanted creature can't be targeted by spells or abilities this turn. I didn't add to the protection category because you would need to have that blue open mana to be able to activate Penman's Aura, that ability on it, and you're more than likely just going to be untapping Nicol Bolas, make people discard their hands, because that is just so powerful. And the rest of the sub-theme cards are also ramp cards. One of the reasons the ramp number is so high is because all 6 of these cards are both in the sub-theme and the ramp category. And that is they untap another target permanent. They're a permanent that taps to untap something else, which means you can untap lands with these. So if you don't have your commander out yet, you can use these to untap your lands to gain more mana, to do XYZ things, maybe even get your commander out. Then once your commander's out, you can then use these to untap your commander to be able to hit more people with the ping effects. These cards are all amazing. The best one here probably being Nimble-Claw Adept, because for 4 mana it untaps 2 things, which is kind of insane. It's honestly ridiculous. If you had any lands that tap for more than 1 mana out, oh my god, this is so much value, it's kind of ridiculous. So for the sub-theme category, you're probably going to recognize some of these cards from my video on Wednesday on Nebuchadnezzar. Those cards being Waste Not, Leyline of the Void, and Turgor God of Fright. So all of these cards in any discard themed deck are going to be amazing. Leyline of the Void does non-bow with Turgrid, but at the same time, having either of them out just hoses some decks. Turgrid hoses everybody's decks because you just get all their stuff. But Leyline, if anyone's running any kind of graveyard theme deck, oh, Leyline just absolutely toasts them, which is so good. And then Waste Not, again, the amount of value this gains you. If you make someone discard their whole hand, they have like 2 creatures in there, 2 lands, and then like an instant or sorcery, like only 5 cards. You're getting 4 mana back, you're drawing a card, and then you're making 2/2/2 zombie creatures. Like, Waste Not's ridiculous. And then in addition to those cards, some sub-theme cards I wanted to add. I finally found a way to put them into a deck. Assault Suit, it's great because it says the equipped creature cannot be sacrificed, so you don't have to pay for its upkeep cost because it just can't be sacrificed. So it gets around that. And then Eon Hub skips upkeep steps, which this deck isn't using any upkeep shenanigans stuff. So just skipping upkeep means you don't have to pay for cumulative upkeep or just upkeep costs, which gets around that as well. Both these cards are, they're okay. Like, Assault Suit's a good card. Eon Hub is cheesy and weird, but it works really well here to get around the upkeep costs of your commander. And yes, you're paying 5 mana on this, so you don't have to spend 3 mana later, and that's what we call stonks. So we are running 3 protection spells, and one of them gives haste, so that just makes it even that much better. So the protection spells I decided to go with for this deck were Kai's Ghost Form, Swiftfoot Boots, and Champion's Helm. I'm not running Lightning Greaves because Greaves gives Shroud, which means you cannot target it with any of the instants or sorceries or any of the auras, so that's a no-go. But Kai's Ghost Form here gives your commander a second life. Plus, it's a 1-up. It's fantastic. It also protects against exile, so even if someone wants to swords it, you got this on it, you're good. Swiftfoot Boots gives haste and hexproof. It's honestly kind of ridiculous. Also, I love this new Fallout art for it. It's amazing. And then Champion's Helm, hexproof and +2/+2. It does cost 3 to play, but it's only equip 1, so that's great. So in Grixis, it's probably the best colors to draw cards. Like, it's ridiculous. Blue and black give you such good card advantage, and red has such good looting effects, or rummaging effects, like they have them both. And so because when you add that all together, you're able to churn through your deck very quickly to find the parts you need. You can get card advantage when you need it. You can just loot or rummage when you need it. It's amazing. The Grixis value is kind of stupid. The 2 biggest draw pieces in the deck, though, are definitely Guess Your War and Waste Not. If you make someone discard their hand, you'll draw a card for each card they discarded with Geth, which is why. That's so insane. And then Waste Not, every time they discard a non-creature, non-land card, you get to draw a card. Again, making them discard their hand, you're definitely going to draw at least 1 or 2 cards that way. That's also ridiculous. These are the tap to draw cards. Relic of Saruman does basically cost 5 mana to draw 2 cards and then discard a card, because you're losing out the paying it, because you're having to tap it, so you're losing out on the 2 mana of any combination of colors. But when you need to draw 2 cards and then discard 1 card, that's honestly worth it. And then Quicksilver Dagger on your commander, make someone discard their hand while drawing a card. Phenomenal. Some looting effects here. We got Faithless Looting, Magmatic Insight, and Frantic Search. Faithless Looting is card disadvantage because you're discarding this, drawing 2 cards, and discard 2 cards, so it's a +2 -3, which is unfortunate. But Magmatic Insight is +2 -2. It's a -2 then +2. You have to discard the cards first. And then Frantic Search is also +2 -3 like Faceless Looting, but you also get to untap up to 3 lands, which if you have lands to tap for more than 2 mana, that's just ramp. And then finally we have just good black draw spells. Sign in Blood, Night's Whisper, amazing. Read the Bones, only costs 1 extra mana to scry to, which scrying to is almost as good as drawing a card. These cards are fantastic. So 19 ramp cards is a lot. You did see 6 of them earlier, all the untappers, but there's a bunch more where that came from in ramp, and I'm happy with, I added some ramp spells here that I haven't put in other decks before because I usually don't run these combination of colors. A card that is completely broken, besides Soul Ring, because the amount of value it can give you and it can protect itself, is Nightscape Familiar. This card's ridiculous. One of my favorite ramp spells of all time is Artie Goblin and Archomancer, because in Gruul decks or Naya decks, the amount of ramp it gives you over the course of a game is absolutely insane. And Nightscape Familiar does that too, except it regenerates itself. Oh, it's so powerful. And the thing about Nightscape Familiar is that even in like a blue-black deck or a black-red deck, you could still run this, and it would be great. I just tend to not run those color combinations very often, so I don't put it in my personal decks. But holy crap, this card is absolutely incredible. These are the ramp artifacts that tap for more than 1 mana, and they also make colored mana. So Relic of Saruman, 2 mana of any combination of red, black, or blue. So it's just a really good Grixis rock. This card's amazing. I don't play Grixis very often, like I said, so I didn't really know. I saw this card in passing, but I never really paid much mind to it because I don't play these colors. But also the ability to essentially pay 5 to draw 2 cards, then discard a card. That's just good backup value in case you need to do that. This card's amazing. Firemind Vessel, you could make 2 mana of any combination of colors as long as they're different, which is crazy. And then Gilded Lotus, getting to make 3 mana of any one color, is so much ramp. That is so powerful. And if you have any of the untappers and you're able to untap Gilded Lotus, that is 6 mana. That's so much mana. We also have these 3 cards in the deck that can go find lands, go find you some basics. Wayfarer Solemn will get you 1 basic onto the board, while Burnish Heart can get you 2. All these cards are great. I run them as often as I can because land ramp is my favorite kind of ramp. These are the 2 mana rocks. They're solid. Patriarch Seal, also you can pay 1 and tap it to untap target legendary creature you control. I didn't include this in the sub-theme, but that's because you have to pay to untap it, and the sub-theme and you can only do it once. For something like Penman's Word, Free from the World, you can do it multiple times. And you're probably going to be using Patriarch Seal for the ramp anyways. Yeah, it's good because it's ramp and it's an untapper, but I didn't put it over there because it's not as good as those. And then, of course, all of these guys, they can untap the mana rocks that produce more than 1 mana, or your lands that produce more than 1 mana, and then you're making so much. It's ridiculous. So, like I said, people are going to be targeting you because they see Nicol Bolas. They're going to be targeting you before you even play your commander, because once people see Nicol Bolas, they're going to be scared that their hands are going to go away. So you're going to need removal to be able to destroy their stuff so they don't come at you with it. So Pongify Rapid Hybridization, 1 mana to destroy a creature. Yes, they leave a 3/3 creature on the battlefield, but if the 3/3 creature is more dangerous than the thing you're removing, you just don't play the spell. Some absolutely ridiculous cards. Snap, Eye of Nowhere, Boomerang, and Unsummon all put stuff back in their opponent's hands so that you can then make them discard their hand. And Eye of Nowhere and Boomerang can bounce a land to its opponent's hand, and then you can make them discard it with your commander. This stuff is so mean. Don't actually do that. Don't just bounce lands back to hand with these, because that is so mean. but is a thing you can definitely do. These are all just good solid removal. Walk the Plank's the only non-modal one here, but it can destroy a non-merfolk creature for 2 mana, which is great. But Feed the Swarm gets a creature or an enchantment, Abrade gets a creature or an artifact, and then Molten Collapse, if you've descended, you can do both, which is ridiculous. So descend means if a permanent card has entered your graveyard from anywhere. So that can't be a token because it needs to be a permanent card, but say you sack an Evolving Wilds, or a creature you control died or something like that, then you've descended that turn. And if you get both effects off, you can destroy a creature and then like a Soul Ring or something. Yeah, no, these Molten Collapse is such a good card. There is one board wipe in the deck, and you've already seen it, but it's Chandra's Ignition. This card is so stupid in this deck. Like, being able to make everybody discard their hands. Kill all their creatures, essentially. Because you're dealing 7 damage to each of their creatures. If the creatures are surviving, those are some big creatures. Chandra's Ignition is bonkers. Like, holy crap. This card's insane. I have it in a feather list that I was going to put together, but then didn't because I found other commanders I wanted to actually put together first. But, God, this card is ridiculous. It's so insane. And then for the lands. So, I do have some lands that I wanted to point out because they're a little extra special. But, yeah, these it's pretty standard for like a Grixis deck, just a lot of lands to make multiple colors because your commanders are pretty restrictive cost. So the lands I did want to go over is a Boilerworks. I'm running all 4 of the bounce lands. That's all 3 of the dual that make 2 color, and then the Guildless Commons, the colorless one, because with all of your untappers, that is so much extra mana you're going to be making. It's kind of insane. Great Hall of the Citadel can filter 1 mana into 2 mana to help cast a legendary spell. This more color fixing because your commander costs so much like colored mana. And then Haven of the Spirit Dragon for the same reason. It makes 1 mana have any combination of colors. It's so good. And you could let your commander die and then sacrifice Haven of the Spirit Dragon to return it to your hand if you wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you could do that. And then Morphic Pool. I say it like I've said before. I'll say it in all my videos, but Wizards, please put the multiplayer cards in the multiplayer precons, that being like Morphic Pool and all the Battle Bonds lands. Everyone will love you for it. So with this deck, there's a lot of different directions you can go with. How do you want the ramp package to look? Do you want more rituals and stuff like that, like Seething Song or whatever, because you could maybe trying to turbo out your commander? Or do you want like a more expensive deck? Do you want more of the really expensive untap effects? And how do you want the ramp to look? Do you want the ramp to be more focused on dragons, or do you want it to be more universal? Like, there's so many different ways you could go. So I had some difficulty making the cuts and getting the deck down to 100 because of all those different directions you can go outside of the main strategy. So some of the maybes I was really considering, I was wondering if I wanted to run the talismans, but I just prefer the signets, and I also wanted some mana rocks to tap for more than 1 mana because of all the untapping effects and the 8 mana cost of my commander. So I decided not to run the talismans. Also, I decided to not run the ritual-like effects like Dark Ritual, Seething Song, Arcane Ritual, all those effects, because I'd rather more consistent and like permanent ramp in that way. And then Riva's the Claw, 3 mana, makes 2 mana, which is phenomenal. And it's legendary, so it does synergize with some of the other untappers, but it only makes mana for dragon creature spells, and it's only casting. If Rivas could be spent for dragon activated abilities or triggered abilities or just any dragon ability as well, I would have used it, because then you can also pay for the upkeep cost. But only being able to pay for the cast cost, it's just not good enough. And then Hellkite Corsair and Geode Golem help get your commander out of the command zone, but with Hellkite Corsair, it gets returned at the beginning of the next end step, so yeah, you could be able to hit somebody with it, potentially make them discard their hand, but I'd rather have like just more consistent ramp out. And Hellkite Corsair, I'm not doing a lot of other dragony stuff, so, and I'm not running like any ETB shenanigans, so if I had a way to bounce Hellkite Corsair or make it enter the battlefield again, sure, but not doing anything like that. So maybe it's worth running as a one-off to get the one-time commander out for 6 mana, make one person discard their hand potentially, but I just decided not to. And then Geode Golem, it's a 5/3, and then if you deal combat damage to a player, you can cast a commander from the command zone without paying its mana cost. You still have to pay commander tax, but that is still so cheap and so amazing. Problem is, I don't know how often you're going to be able to hit in with this, and this is going to be a prime time removal target. So, and it's only a 5/3. It does have trample, but you're probably only get the 1 hit in, then it dies, and maybe that's good enough, but again, I just wanted more consistent ramp. And then a bunch of synergy and theme cards I didn't run. These are a bunch of untappers I did not run. 1,000-Year Elixir, it's just, maybe it's good enough because the haste, but you're not probably going to be able to enchant Nicol Bolas the same turn that you play it because of the high mana cost. So 1,000-Year Elixir, kind of useless under that sense. And then you have to pay 1 mana to untap it, which there's so many untappers that you don't have to do that for. It's not worth it. Dol Amroth, I really wanted to run this land, but it's like $40. So I guess it's actually Minamo, School at Water's Edge. This is just Lord of the Ring art for it. That looks amazing. But yeah, Minamo's like a $30, $40 card or something, so that's unfortunate. And then Second Wind, it's an enchantment that untaps the creature, but unlike Penman's Aura or Free from the Real, you can't pay to do it. So this is just a worse version than any of the other like creatures that untap, because once your commander dies, this goes away too. Fate Stitcher, 4 mana, only get to untap one thing. It does have Unearth, so you could bring it back for 1 blue mana, which is cool for a turn, but it's 4 mana to untap one thing. Not really what I'm looking for. And then Wrathful Red Dragon. It is great because whenever the dragon controls dealt damage, it deals with the damage to any target that isn't a dragon. So it's kind of like Arc Bond a little bit, but it's 5 mana. It's not great. It would make it so that your commander, even if it got blocked, it could still deal damage, and it's this kind of, you block it, you discard your hand, you don't block it, you take 7 and discard your hand, so it kind of gets around blockers in that sense, but it's kind of expensive, and I'm not running a lot of dragons, so this is better in like a dragon tribal kind of deck. So what do you think of the video? I love it. I'm super happy with it. I'm not happy with what the deck does, because what the deck does is super mean and super evil. I mean, Nicol Bolas is mean and evil, so I guess it works. But yeah, it's so degenerate, and I kind of feel bad even for putting this deck together, honestly. These are all of my socials. I post when all of my videos go up on Twitter, and then TikTok and Reddit. I'm eventually going to put content on there, and then all of my deck lists live on Archfield, Architect, and Moxfield. So thanks for watching, and as always, get building, splainers. Alright, that is so